On a bright summer morning inside Denver International Airport, sunlight spilled across the polished floors like melted gold. Passengers laughed, rolled suitcases, and sipped iced coffee. But peace shattered the moment two police dogs, Rex and Buddy, lifted their heads at the same time and went silent. These weren't ordinary dogs. Locals whispered their own legend, the twin shepherds whose instincts ran deeper than any machine, and whose noses detected danger long before alarms ever sounded. Officer Michael Harris had seen that look before. The stillness, the tension, the way both dogs shifted like living shadows drawn to a single point. Then Rex growled. Buddy followed. Their eyes locked on an innocent-looking teddy bear drifting slowly down the baggage conveyor. A toy no larger than a child's heart, yet something inside it moved. Passengers froze. Security stiffened. And in that quiet, sunlit terminal, a long-buried secret was about to tear open. One that would pull the two loyal shepherds and everyone around them into a danger far darker than summer should ever hold. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share, and tell us where you're watching from. Your support keeps these stories alive. Denver in midsummer always felt like a city carved from light. The air shimmered over the runways of Denver International Airport, the distant Rockies glowing blue against the horizon, and sunlight poured through the tall glass walls of Terminal B like warm honey. Inside the baggage hall, the polished white floor reflected every beam of sun as if the floor itself were a second sky. The loudspeakers chimed with the familiar announcements. Suitcases rolled across glossy tiles, and clusters of travelers laughed, chatted, or checked their phones with that particular summer restlessness that came from delayed flights and family vacations. Moving through this bright, restless world was Officer Mike Harris, a man in his early 40s with a square jaw softened by smile lines, sandy brown stubble trimming his chin, and those calm gray eyes that spoke of a decade spent diffusing tense moments with steadiness rather than force. He was of medium height but powerfully built, a former high school baseball player whose knees still creaked from an old injury he never mentioned. His nature was gentle with civilians but unyielding when danger surfaced, a balance shaped years ago when he lost a fellow officer during a bomb scare, an experience that made him vigilant without ever turning cold. At his side padded his two partners, the K9 German shepherds Rex and Buddy, both in their prime but as different as daylight and dusk. Rex, at 5 years old, had a dark saddle of black over tan fur, ears sharp as arrowheads, and an expression that rarely wavered from disciplined focus. Every step he took looked pre-measured, as if he were silently counting threats. Buddy, slightly younger with a warmer golden coat and a white streak along his chest, carried himself with a looser, almost playful stride. He had a habit of glancing sideways at random bags like he expected one of them to sprout legs and run, and he often talked in grumbly little huffs whenever he disagreed with something, which was often. To Mike, the two dogs were perfect opposites that somehow balanced each other. "All right, gentlemen," he murmured, tapping both harnesses with the back of his hand as they approached the main conveyor loop. "Another quiet morning. Let's keep it that way." The dogs trotted beside him under the soft hum of lights, their paws making faint clicking sounds against the polished floor. Suitcases in every muted airport color, charcoal, midnight blue, gunmetal, forest green, glided along the belt beneath the bright ceiling lamps. A few meters away, an elderly couple debated loudly about whether their bag had already passed, while a teenager in a red hoodie recorded Rex and Buddy with her phone, whispering excitedly, They're so cool. Mike suppressed a smile. Buddy basked in the attention, swaggering just a little harder. Rex, utterly unimpressed, flicked one ear backward as if to say fame was beneath him. The conveyor belt rattled gently, and Mike let his gaze sweep the line of luggage, trusting the dogs to do what they did best. He wasn't expecting anything unusual on such a bright, ordinary summer day. But that was when Buddy stopped walking. His nose twitched once, twice, then he snapped his head sideways toward the belt. Rex halted too, posture stiffening as if someone had pulled an invisible wire taut along his spine. Two raised tails almost froze mid-air, perfectly synchronized. Mike blinked. "What's that about?" he whispered, stepping closer. And then he saw it. Amidst the stream of suitcases lay a teddy bear, large, round, and impossibly clean, its fur the color of toasted caramel, its black plastic eyes glossy and untouched, and a bright red ribbon tied neatly around its neck. It lay on the belt as if it had just woken from a nap, rolling gently between luggage far too heavy for it to belong among. "Someone left their kid's toy," Mike muttered, though the hair on his arms prickled. Buddy let out a soft, uneasy chirp, inching forward and sniffing the air with exaggerated care. Rex's lips tightened over his teeth. Not a snarl, not yet, but the tension of a dog sensing something that didn't belong. His amber eyes locked onto the bear like it was holding a secret. "Oh, come on, guys," Mike said lightly, trying to brush off the prickling in his gut. "A teddy bear? Really? Maybe someone spilled French fries on it or something." Buddy growled, an uncharacteristically low sound for him, then took a step back before creeping forward again. Rex remained absolutely still, muscles coiled like wire, ears pinned forward, nose quivering at a scent only he and Buddy could recognize. The conveyor belt hummed on, passengers continued chatting, completely unaware of the shift in the dog's behavior. But Mike saw it. He had learned long ago that a dog may bark at nonsense, but two canines freezing at the same time was never nonsense. A bead of sweat slid down his temple despite the perfect air conditioning. "Rex?" he whispered. "Talk to me, buddy." The dog didn't even flick an ear. His stare drilled into the teddy bear with a focus Mike had last seen during a live explosive detection. And then everything happened at once. Rex lunged, a sudden, explosive movement that sent a startled scream rippling through the crowd. His paws hit the conveyor belt with a thud, and he clamped his jaws tight around the teddy bear's ear, anchoring himself against the moving belt. Buddy launched right beside him, grabbing the bear's arm with surprising ferocity for a dog who usually preferred beef jerky and belly rubs. The belt shuddered under their combined strength, bags rattling, passengers stumbling back in alarm. A security officer shouted. A child cried out. Mike felt the world tilt. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't play. This wasn't normal. The alarm system prepared to trigger, and Mike Harris finally understood. This was no longer a joke. Something was very, very wrong. The baggage hall had transformed from a cheerful summer rush to a sealed-off zone glowing under pulsing red alarms. Yet the sunlight pouring through the high Denver windows kept everything harshly bright, exposing every detail as if the truth itself refused to hide. Officers stretched yellow security tape around the conveyor belts, while confused passengers clustered behind the barrier, phones raised, murmuring in disbelief as two German shepherds continued to wrestle a teddy bear like it was a live threat. Rex, jaws clenched on the bear's ear, held his body low and rigid, while Buddy planted himself between the toy and anyone who dared step forward, tail stiff, teeth bared in warning. Officer Michael Harris stood nearby, sweat gathering along his temples despite the air conditioning. He had seen his dogs tense before, but not like this. Not with fear and protectiveness tangled together. Just as a second wave of passengers began whispering frightened theories, bomb, chemical, dangerous suspect, a firm voice cut through the chaos. Move aside. What's going on here? Captain Sarah Miller strode into the hall with the kind of presence that made people instinctively clear a path. She was a woman in her late 30s, tall and lean with long legs that carried a confident stride. Her dark auburn hair was twisted into a neat bun, exposing a sharp jaw and skin fair enough to show the faint flush of irritation creeping up her neck. Her green eyes, alert and analytical, scanned the commotion before narrowing at Mike. Sarah was known across the airport for her efficiency. Brisk, demanding, allergic to incompetence. Years ago, she had worked emergency response during a wildfire evacuation that went disastrously wrong. Losing 3 civilians under her watch left a scar that hardened her attitude toward protocol. Everything must be done correctly, and anything unpredictable was an enemy. Dogs included. "Why are your K9s destroying civilian property?" she asked, voice clipped. A lesser officer might have crumbled under that stare, but Mike straightened, steady. "Ma'am, they're reacting to something inside the bear. I've never seen them behave this urgently." Sarah folded her arms, lips pressed thin. "It's a toy, Harris." "Not to them," he said quietly. Buddy growled at a technician who stepped too close, and Rex's snout tightened around the bear, as if he wouldn't hesitate to rip it open with or without permission. Sarah hesitated, only for a moment, but in that pause there was a crack in her armor. Doubt. Something in the dog's eyes unsettled even her rigid sense of order. "Fine," she said, finally exhaling. "Clear the area. Get the tech team here. Full scan." 2 technicians hurried forward. One was Evan Cho, a wiry man in his late 20s with black-framed glasses, quick nervous movements, and a habit of pushing his sleeves up every 5 seconds. He specialized in compact electronics and had a brilliant, mind but a skittish nature. He once accidentally triggered a false alarm while opening a vending machine panel. The other technician, Luis Ramirez, was broader, older, and calmer, with salt and pepper hair and a small scar on his chin from a youthful attempt to fix a lawnmower engine that nearly exploded. Luis approached the teddy bear first, crouching very slowly, palms open. Rex snarled, and Buddy barked sharply, forcing him to freeze. "Easy," Luis murmured. "We're just looking, boys." Evan flicked on the portable X-ray scanner, the machine emitting a soft blue glow. He angled it toward the bear, while keeping a healthy distance from Rex's teeth. The result appeared within seconds on the monitor. Evan's jaw dropped. Captain," he said, voice thin. "You need to see this." Sarah took the device from his shaking hands. The screen showed the teddy bear's hollow interior, but inside the cavity was something moving, something small, warm, alive. A soft cluster of heat hovered near the center, shifting slightly. "Is that?" she whispered. "Not machinery," Evan confirmed, swallowing. "Organic heat, about 90 degrees. A small animal," Luis added. "But that's not all." He pointed to a darker mass beneath the warm shape, a compact rectangular object flashing with faint electromagnetic pulses. "That's electronic." Sarah's face tightened. "Procedure says treat it like an explosive." "Procedure also says consider the presence of life," Mike countered, stepping between her and the dogs. And they're treating it like a pup in danger, not a bomb. She hesitated again. Two battles fought behind her eyes. Protocol versus instinct. For the first time, instinct won. Ramirez, she ordered quietly. Prepare manual access, slowly. Luis nodded, pulled a slender cutting tool from his kit, and knelt beside the conveyor belt. Rex growled, but Mike placed a hand on the dog's back. Easy, boy. Let him help. Rex's trembling eased just enough. Luis slid the blade beneath the seam of the teddy bear's back and made a careful incision. A single tear in the fabric released a faint, warm smell. Fur, milk, and fear. He tugged the seam open. Sunlight from the high windows struck the exposed interior, and something moved. A tiny German Shepherd puppy, barely 6 weeks old, dirt-smudged and trembling, tumbled weakly into Luis's hands. It let out a tiny broken whimper. Rex whined, a soft, mournful sound, while Buddy pressed close, ears pinned. Sarah's breath caught. Then Luis lifted another layer of fabric. Beneath the puppy lay a small black device, blinking an ominous green light. Rex's growl thundered across the hall. Buddy barked, sharp and urgent, and Sarah Miller realized this bright summer morning had just torn open something far darker. This was only the beginning. The bright Denver noon pressed against the airport windows, flooding the veterinary room in Terminal B with a hard, revealing light. Everything looked sharper in summer, shadows thinner, colors harsher, and truths harder to ignore. On a stainless steel exam table lay the tiny German Shepherd puppy rescued from inside the teddy bear. Its fur, matted with sweat and dust, was a pale tan beneath grime. Its paws trembled softly each time it breathed. The puppy was no more than 6 weeks old, with oversized ears that drooped forward like exhausted petals. Dr. Allison Green, the airport's on-call veterinarian, held the small body gently as she checked its hydration levels. Allison, in her mid-40s, had the warm, lived-in face of someone who had spent half her life comforting frightened animals. Laugh lines framed her brown eyes, and her curly dark hair was pulled into a messy bun that never quite obeyed her. A faded scar along her left forearm told of a horse rescue she once attempted during her internship, a moment that shaped her career toward emergency animal care. She was sturdy, slightly short, full of practical tenderness, the kind of woman who could soothe a panicked dog while scolding a grown man for holding a leash wrong. "He's dehydrated, but he'll make it," she murmured, running a gloved thumb along the puppy's trembling jaw. Whoever stuffed him inside that bear didn't plan for him to stay long. Rex stood inches away, lowering his proud head to nudge the puppy's paw with surprising tenderness. Buddy, unable to contain himself, circled the table 3 times before settling beside Mike's leg, ears swiveling as if guarding every angle. Officer Mike Harris placed a calming hand on Buddy's back. His jaw tightened as he watched the tiny pup try to nuzzle against Allison's wrist. Something in him broke at the sight, a mix of anger and an instinct older than training. "They used him," Mike said quietly, "like baggage." Captain Sarah Miller stood at the foot of the table, arms crossed, her green eyes sharp but clouded by something heavier. Guilt, maybe, or the slow realization that protocol had nearly failed her judgment. The summer light caught the auburn in her twisted hair, making it glow like copper against her pale skin. "Used him for what?" she muttered. "And what's that device underneath him?" As if on cue, Evan Cho and Luis Ramirez, the 2 technicians from earlier, entered the room with the teddy bear's extracted materials sealed in sterile bags. Evan, in his usual restless energy, pushed his sliding glasses up his nose as he opened a digital scan on his tablet. "Captain, we analyzed the tubes inside the bear. They're not narcotics." Luis, calmer and broader, added, "They're filled with a crystalline gel, bioreactive, contains engineered proteins." "Which means," Sarah pressed. Evan hesitated. "It's biotech, advanced, purpose unknown." The room fell silent, except for the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Summer brightness streamed through the window, illuminating the puppy like a fragile secret. Buddy let out a soft whine as if sensing the weight of the revelation. Sarah massaged her forehead. "Get me the camera footage," she ordered. "Now." Minutes later, the group gathered around a monitor on the nearby desk. The footage rewound, showing the bright, bustling check-in hall bathed in sunlight. Travelers pushed luggage carts, children tugged at parents' hands, and light glinted off every metallic surface. "There," Luis pointed. A woman wearing a beige summer dress, wide-brimmed sun hat, and dark sunglasses stepped into frame. She moved with the casual grace of someone who knew airports well, unhurried, fluid, confident. Her dress, light and flowing, contrasted with her stiff posture. She set the teddy bear on the conveyor belt, glanced subtly left and right, then disappeared into the crowd, so smoothly she might have evaporated. Sarah narrowed her eyes. She knew where the cameras were, and she expected the bear to pass undetected, Evan added. Mike leaned closer to the screen, studying the woman's profile beneath the hat's shadow. "She wasn't smuggling drugs," he said. "She was smuggling a living test subject." Allison stiffened. "You think the puppy was part of an experiment?" Evan hesitated, then nodded. "There's a microchip inside the pup, matching signal to the device under the bear's stuffing. My guess? They were monitoring vitals during transport." "Monitoring how long he'd survive," Allison whispered, anger trembling in her voice. Sarah's jaw tensed. "So this wasn't cruelty. It was research." "Illegal research," Mike corrected. "And she's still here." At that moment, Buddy's ears snapped upward. He stiffened, body coiled tight. Rex mirrored the movement, hackles rising, gaze snapping toward the open doorway as if a silent alarm went off in their bones. The room froze. Mike felt the leash jerk as Buddy pulled, muscles vibrating with instinct. Rex growled, a low, resonant warning that vibrated through the sterile room. Sarah turned. "What is it?" Buddy barked sharply, leaning hard toward the hallway, toward the direction of the sunny arrivals lobby, where crowds bustled and summer glare whitened every surface. Rex lunged forward once, pulling against Mike's hold. "Easy, boy. What do you smell?" The dogs didn't answer, but their bodies did, leaning in the same direction, nostrils flaring with intensity. Mike's pulse kicked. Sarah's eyes widened. Because in that instant, both dogs reacted not with fear, but with recognition. "She's still here," Mike whispered. "Whoever left that teddy bear, she never left the airport." And the summer-bright hallway outside suddenly felt more dangerous than any darkness. The chase began the moment Rex tore forward, nose sharp as a needle slicing through the mosaic of scents drifting across Denver International Airport. Mike loosened the leash just enough for Rex to take the lead, Buddy pacing tightly at his side with a restless energy that vibrated through the line. The summer sun spilled through every window and skylight, turning the long corridors into glowing tunnels of white and gold. Families wheeled suitcases past cafe counters where baristas handed out iced drinks. Travelers in shorts and floral shirts laughed, oblivious to the danger threading through the brightness. Yet beneath that cheerful summer chaos, a single scent, faint perfume, cotton fibers, synthetic fur, pulled the dogs like an invisible rope. Sarah Miller followed behind, commanding a formation of officers. Her tall frame cut a spearhead through the crowd, auburn hair gleaming sharply under the lights. She barked orders with crisp precision, and her voice carried authority that made civilians flatten themselves against walls in confusion. Mike felt sweat bead across his shoulders, not from the heat, but from the knowledge that their quarry was close, very close. The dogs zigzagged past a souvenir kiosk, down a wide hallway, where the light was so intense it washed the tiles nearly white. Buddy's ears twitched at every sound, but he remained on the trail. Rex, more experienced, didn't waver, guided by the distinct smell he had memorized from the teddy bear's torn stuffing. At the escalators, Rex halted abruptly. He turned, not toward the boarding gates, but downward, toward the concrete underbelly of the airport. "She's heading for the parking garage," Mike muttered. Sarah nodded sharply. "Move!" The group thundered down the stairs into the multi-level structure. Though farther from natural sunlight, the garage was anything but dark. Rows of overhead LED strips poured white light onto every vehicle, turning polished metal into mirrors and oil stains into black shadows etched on gray stone. The air smelled of engine heat, rubber, and evaporated gasoline. Yet the dogs didn't falter. They dragged Mike toward level 2, weaving through parked sedans and SUVs until they reached a row near the exit ramp. Here, the air felt charged. Rex stopped so abruptly that Mike nearly stumbled. Buddy stiffened beside him. Both dogs growled low, the kind of growl that came from instinct, warning, certainty. Mike followed their gaze. A woman in a beige summer dress was shoving a key into the lock of a silver compact car. She was in her early 30s, pale-skinned, with long light brown hair cascading beneath a floppy sun hat. The sunglasses hiding her eyes were oversized, almost theatrical, and her lips were pressed thin in focused urgency. Her posture was taut, her hands trembling as she fumbled the lock. In her left arm, she held something horrifyingly familiar, a teddy bear identical to the one from the baggage belt. "K9 police!" Mike shouted, voice echoing off the concrete. "Don't move!" The woman spun around. Her expression didn't crumble into fear or panic. Instead, a cold calculation hardened her face. She dropped the keys, but she didn't drop the bear. Rex launched first, a blur of black and tan surging across the floor. Buddy followed half a heartbeat later, muscles coiled, claws scraping the cement as they closed the distance. The woman lunged for her door out of desperation, but the shepherds were faster. Rex latched onto the fabric of her dress. Not skin, not flesh, just enough to drag her momentum sideways. Buddy leapt at her other side, forcing her off balance. She stumbled to the ground, the teddy bear flying from her grasp and rolling onto the glowing white concrete. Officers closed in with weapons drawn. Sarah stepped to the front, stance wide, green eyes blazing. She was ready for a bomb, a chemical weapon, anything. But the woman just lay still, breathing hard, then slowly raised her hands. "Hands where we can see them," Sarah ordered. Mike grabbed Rex and Buddy back by their harnesses, both dogs still vibrating with fury. The woman's chest heaved, but her voice, soft, controlled, did not match the chaos she had caused. "You think you saved a life today," she murmured. Her tone was chillingly calm, almost pitying. "But what you found was only the first." Mike narrowed his eyes. "The first of what?" The woman smirked faintly. The first experiment. There are more, many more. Sarah stepped closer, jaw tight. Where are they? The woman's lips parted in a whisper that slipped like a blade into the hot summer air. Flying. Right now. Gaobong Mohe. All across your country. Mike felt Rex and Buddy tense again, their ears pinning back as if they understood the gravity of the threat. Summer sunshine streamed from the garage entrance, but it suddenly felt colder, like something vast, deliberate, and unstoppable had been set in motion. And in the eyes of Rex and Buddy, Mike saw it clearly. Something far worse was coming. The morning after the arrest was brighter than usual, as if the Denver sun itself had decided to stand witness to everything the airport had survived. The sky outside Terminal B stretched wide and blue, washed clean by a soft night breeze, while sunlight streamed through the tall windows like molten glass. Yet even with the calm, the day carried the quiet hum of urgency. FBI vehicles lined the curb outside, their black hoods gleaming. Agents in navy jackets moved briskly through the halls, and in the command room, screens glowed with maps of the United States, each dotted with blinking alerts from airports coast to coast. The entire building felt like a living heartbeat of activity. Officer Michael Harris stood beside Captain Sarah Miller at the center, watching the real-time updates roll in. Mike looked tired in a way that went beyond lost sleep. His eyes were rimmed with faint red from the weight of everything he'd seen in the last 24 hours. His sandy hair was still damp from a rushed morning shower, and his uniform clung slightly to his shoulders. But his posture remained solid. Sarah stood straighter, her lean frame tense but controlled. The harsh ceiling lights sharpened the copper undertones in her auburn hair and cast soft shadows along the high lines of her cheekbones. She looked like a commander in the middle of a chessboard, all focus and calculation. But beneath that steely exterior, the toll of the situation showed in the tiny crease above her brow. They weren't just dealing with a smuggler. They were facing an operation. FBI agent Daniel Whitlock stepped into the room, gripping a tablet. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man in his early 50s, with a presence that filled the space instantly. His hair, iron gray and neatly trimmed, matched the stubble on his jaw. Deep lines cut down from the corners of his eyes, marks of years spent interrogating criminals and witnessing the darker corners of human ambition. He carried the calm authority of someone who had led entire teams into raids, but also the heavy quiet of a man who'd once lost a partner during a biotech seizure gone wrong. It made him cautious, measured, never one to underestimate a threat. "We got a match," Daniel said, tapping the screen. "The chip inside the teddy bear connects to a network we've tracked for 3 years. Biotech smuggling, experimental materials, illegal cross-border shipments. These teddy bears weren't random. They were delivery units." Sarah exhaled slowly. "How many?" "Dozens." Daniel looked at Mike. "But thanks to your dogs, we intercepted 5 more flights before the bears were loaded onto domestic routes. Other airports are reporting similar findings." Mike felt a swell of pride and a pulse of fear. Rex and Buddy, lying obediently at his feet, perked their ears. Buddy's tail gave a cautious wag. Rex remained stoic, gaze fixed on Daniel as if evaluating every word. Dr. Allison Green arrived moments later, with the rescued puppy nestled in her arms. The little shepherd looked healthier already, its tan fur brushed clean, its dark eyes brighter beneath the fluorescent light. The pup lifted its head, sniffed toward Rex and Buddy, then gave a small, squeaky bark. Buddy whimpered happily. Rex attempted to remain dignified, but the corner of his mouth twitched upward in the closest thing to a smile a disciplined K9 could manage. "He's recovering quickly," Allison said, smoothing the puppy's back. "Strong little guy, tougher than he looks." "Does he still have the microchip?" Sarah asked. "Removed and sealed for analysis," Allison replied. "He's just a normal puppy now." Mike crouched down and scratched Rex's ear. Normal might be pushing it. He survived something that was never meant for survival. Daniel cleared his throat. "Thanks to your team, the trafficking ring's central hub was located. A warehouse outside Chicago. FBI raided it at dawn." Sarah lifted her chin, eyes lighting with a mixture of relief and vindication. "And?" "Shut down. The mastermind's in custody. All data, equipment, prototypes secured." Mike let the words sink in. The air felt lighter, brighter, as if the whole airport exhaled. Hours later, a small ceremony gathered near the East Terminal Garden, a patch of green shrubs and blooming summer flowers, glowing under the open sky. Reporters filmed from designated zones, passengers watched from behind ropes, and a podium stood at the center. Mike, Sarah, and Dr. Allison remained off to the side with the dogs. Rex sat tall, chest broad and proud, while Buddy vibrated with excitement, tail sweeping the ground like a windshield wiper. The puppy wobbled between them, trying to imitate Rex's regal posture, but falling sideways onto Buddy's paw, earning a playful sniff. Sarah allowed herself a rare smile. "Look at that," she murmured. "A rookie already causing trouble." "That's the spirit of the unit," Mike said, nudging Buddy. "Trouble with good intentions." When their names were called, Rex and Buddy received medals, small but symbolic, hung on their harnesses by Agent Daniel himself. Cameras flashed. Applause rolled through the warm summer air. The puppy wagged clumsily, as if applauding too. Then, as the crowd parted, a young couple approached Allison. They were in their late 20s, the man tall and lanky with a sunburnt nose and gentle grin, the woman petite with freckles across her cheeks and warm hazel eyes. They introduced themselves as Eli and Mari Turner, newlyweds who lived just 15 minutes away. Their apartment had a small fenced yard, and they had been hoping for a rescue dog to join their home. Warm, genuine, a little awkward, they radiated kindness that made the room feel softer. After a heartfelt conversation, they offered to adopt the rescued puppy. Allison glanced at Mike, Sarah, and the dogs. Buddy barked approvingly. Rex nudged the puppy, gently toward them, anointing the decision. And just like that, the pup had a home, but close enough that Rex and Buddy could watch him grow. As the ceremony wound down, summer sunlight spilled thick and golden across the terminal floor. Mike knelt and pulled both dogs close. "One teddy bear," he murmured. "One little life, and two stubborn heroes who changed everything." Sarah folded her arms, smiling softly. "Sometimes," she said, "it isn't the technology that saves a city. It's the hearts that refuse to stop protecting." In the last warm glow of the Denver afternoon, Rex and Buddy stretched out on the cool airport tiles, the puppy curling into a tiny ball between them. The camera of a reporter zoomed out, capturing the trio bathed in sunlight. 3 silhouettes wrapped in peace, loyalty, and the promise of more heroism to come. And somewhere deep in the airport's quiet hum, one truth lingered. If another strange teddy bear ever rolled across a conveyor belt, Rex and Buddy would rise again, ready to save the summer. Sometimes the greatest miracles don't arrive with thunder or angels in the sky. Sometimes they come to us on four paws, hidden in a teddy bear, or carried in the courage of two loyal shepherds who refuse to give up on life. In this story, Rex and Buddy remind us of something sacred, that even in the middle of an ordinary summer day, God can work quietly through unexpected heroes, through instinct, loyalty, and the small heartbeat of a rescued puppy. He shows us that no life is too small to protect, no darkness too deep for his light to break through. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us. In our own daily lives, whether in airports, workplaces, or quiet corners of home, God is still at work, guiding us in ways we don't always see, placing protectors in our path, and sending us reminders that goodness still survives in this world. If this story touched your heart, I invite you to share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment below, tell us where you're watching from, and what miracle you're praying for. And if you'd like more stories about loyalty, courage, and the quiet ways God moves among us, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. May God bless you, protect you, and surround your family with His gentle guidance, just as He watched over Rex, Buddy, and that tiny life wrapped in fear and fur. May His hand guide your steps, and His love be the shield that guards your days. Thank you for watching, and may His miracles find you when you least expect them.